I'm Ninelia, one of the directors of Monday meetings.
Hey, my name is Yukdong, and I'm also a Monday meeting director. And we are so excited to have a professional from Viva today to talk with you all.
Before we get started, here are the announcements for the week. Thursday is meeting with the firm's private industry and government from 4 to 7 p.m. Don't forget to dress professionally, have some questions ready to ask, and research the firms ahead of the meeting. Join us Sunday, October 10th from 1 to 4 p.m. for a picnic and grill at Northridge Park. We will have games and plenty of food for everyone. This is an AA members only event, and if you register, please attend. Next Monday, October 11th, we will have Roger CPA to present the topic of From Point A to CPA. We encourage everyone to have their cameras on, and please wait until the end to ask questions with the raise hand feature on Zoom. Without further ado, please feel free to take it away.
Thanks, everyone. So my name is Majid, and I'm an audit manager out of our Manhattan Beach office at Weaver. And I've got with me Rachel and Electra.
I'm Rachel. I'm a senior out of the Manhattan Beach office.
Hi, everyone. I'm Electra. I'm the campus recruiter, and I actually sit in our Texas office in Dallas.
So we're going to be doing a presentation on how a CPA firm works. We're probably going to spend like the first 1/3 of it just talking about some background about public accounting. The other 1/3 is probably going to be just some more technical stuff. And the last 1/3, we wanted to do like a breakout room where some of you guys get to talk to me, Rachel, and Electra individually. So that's the game plan for today. So I'm going to share my screen and let's hope this works. Let me know if you guys are able to see it.
Yes, it's good.
Okay, I'll do this. I used to be so good at PowerPoint in college, and now I've forgotten everything. So bear with me if I'm not the best at this. But is this top part blocking it?
I think it looks good.
Oh, it looks good? Okay, perfect. So if any of you guys want, you can take a quick scan of that picture real quick. It's going to take you to our website and ask you some questions. But I'll flip over to the next slide. So this is a little bit of background about our firm. We have 12 offices across the US and 3 in California. We have 1 in Woodland Hills, which is pretty close to where Northridge is. We got 1 in Manhattan Beach, which is where Rachel and I are located out of. And then we also got a pretty new office in San Diego. And most of our offices are located out of Texas, where Electra is from. And then got 1 office in New York City. And then all our LA offices and pretty much all our offices do your typical public accounting services, audit, tax, advisory, and me and Rachel work in the audit side of it. And our LA practice is growing significantly. So you'll see at the end all the positions we're currently hiring for, some that start as soon as 3 months from now, and some are like internships for next year. So we'll give you more background about that during the end though.
So like Majid was saying, all the offices do kind of like have different types of things. I think with public accounting, sometimes you think like it's only like audit or tax, but we do have a lot of other industries. Like our San Diego office specializes in energy compliance. And then I know a lot of people in Texas work on Gov, and our offices out here and in New York specialize in audit investment funds, so like financial services, and like we do broker dealers. And then there's also like the IT side, like IT advisory. I think there's like something else with IT too, right?
There's a couple different things, yeah.
And yeah.
So here's some like background about the different positions you can expect to see at a public accounting firm. Usually when you work like on an audit or tax team, your team is going to have 4 people, I'd say. The team usually has either an intern or an associate, which is probably what positions all of you guys are applying for. The position then usually has either like a manager or a senior manager. the team has a manager or a senior manager. The team usually has a senior associate, and the team usually has a partner. So in public accounting, you usually get to work with a really big team on your jobs. When you start, usually you start as full-time as an associate, and you're an associate for 1 to 3 years. And then if you do a pretty good job, you get promoted to a senior. You're usually a senior for 2 to 5 years. Then most public accounting firms require you to have a CPA license to become a manager. So whenever they emphasize try getting your CPA as soon as possible, the reason they say that is because once you hit this level, you make a lot more money, but you also got a lot more work to do. So it becomes harder to study. Whereas here, as our new hires will tell you, right now it's pretty laid back for them. So if you do want to stay in public accounting and eventually get a manager title and move up even above that, you'll need your CPA license. And CPA license is good to have just in general, as most of you probably know, not just for public accounting. And then these are more higher level positions as you move up. Partners are the ones who, own stake in the company. They're usually the ones going out winning work. And then the senior managers are kind of in the middle where they're developing their business development skills while also still managing a lot of jobs and hoping to get that partner title. But so I'm going to take the first stab at this. Just this slide, by the way, is just some background we wanted to give you guys about how to be a successful intern or associate in public accounting. Because like I said, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys might have internships that are starting either in the spring or next summer, or some of you might be even starting full-time after you graduate this fall. So these are just some tips that we wanted to give that Rachel and I have noticed what makes a successful new hire.
Yeah, I think just coming in with an open mind and just kind of absorbing everything around you and just not being afraid to talk to your seniors or the managers or the partners is really, you don't need to have all the technical knowledge. It's just kind of being part of the office environment and learning stuff.
And then networking with coworkers is a really big one, especially for those of you guys who are trying to get an internship or already have an internship. A lot of the times you'll have questions and people will think it's like the only person you should go to is the person above you. But sometimes the best resource to go to is like another intern or another associate. And then another common thing you'll run into is you might be slow on work, but building relationships with people you're working within the firm and, showing them that you're, a hard worker, all that good stuff, and having a lot of contacts at the firm will definitely help you stand out and show them where, show the firm that you're a good hire and someone they want to promote or want to have full time. And then in terms of using resources, one of the most common, challenges we see is that, as a new hire, you're going to have a lot of questions, and it's pretty common and it's expected that you're going to go to people above you for questions. But the new hires that are most successful are the ones who know how to use resources like Google, like their coworkers, just honestly, sometimes even, notes they've taken from their previous trainings and utilizing that to answer their own questions. Definitely, you don't have to, know the answer to everything or have to Google everything, but people above you really appreciate it if you're able to answer questions yourself, or at least take a stab at answering questions yourself versus just heading over to their desk every 10 minutes and being like, hey, I have a question. Rachel and I can tell you from experience that we got a lot of busy work going on, and we love our staff who, come over only, once every 1 hour, 2 hour and ask all their questions at once versus the ones who come over every 10 minutes. So that's something big as an intern or as an associate that you should keep in mind is that, hey, I have a question. Have I done everything on my end to try to answer this question myself? And if not, then that's when you go to the person above you to get help. And then listening is the last one on here, where you'll, a lot of the time, you'll ask a question, someone will be explaining it to you for 2 to 3 minutes, and you'll only try to take in probably 10% of it, which is pretty common. But usually the reason the person is giving you that long explanation is because everything is important in it. And then a lot of the time that long explanation, especially if you're pretty new, won't make sense. So it's up to you to kind of goes back to being honest with the person and saying, hey, thanks for this explanation. This part made sense. This part didn't. can you, go over this part again real quick to make sure, I fully understand what I have to do. Because it's pretty common a lot of the time for associates and interns to feel like, hey, this person just spent all this time explaining it to me. I don't want to waste any more of their time explaining stuff to me because they're busy. Let me just give this a shot myself, even though I didn't understand it, and try it. But that's sometimes okay. But the problem you'll run into is that if you didn't understand what you're doing, you go in and do it, and you do it all wrong, that's gonna hurt the people above you a lot more than the 5 extra minutes they could have took to answer the question. So these are the most common things that interns and associates struggle with. So I would keep all these in mind. And as an intern and associate, the expectations aren't too high. These are honestly all just like soft skill stuff, right? It's not the stuff you're learning in your 350, 440 tax classes that you need to remember. It's all just some small stuff here and there that requires you to monitor the situation and that stuff. Anything I missed, Rachel?
I think that's it. I feel like, yeah, like what you were saying earlier about getting to know everyone, because it's not 100% on our side if we like the intern. It's kind of like, do they fit here because we're working so many hours? And I feel like that's kind of what's cool about having interns, is like we get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, like we're interviewing a lot of people right now, and once you get an interview, it's more about, I'll skim through your resume because I interview a lot of people, but at that point, we're judging the person more than we're judging the resume once you get an interview. And I can guarantee you from talking to a lot of other professionals that that's how most public accounting firms handle it. So anything you want to add, Electra, on any of the slides we went over?
No, not yet.
Okay, we'll hop over, and I think we'll just do the questions all at once at the end to make it easy.
So yeah, we had a couple like slides about the differences between public and industry, because I know like for me, you hear the word industry a lot and don't exactly know what it means, but I have a little slide for the pros and cons of public. The pros, I think, are how much exposure you get to different companies, and I think also for us, at least, our office is pretty like specialized in a certain thing, but you get exposure to all of the audit areas. Like we do audit start to finish. And then it sounds weird, but flexibility is a huge one. Here, I think from starting to work remote more, it's kind of more just about like, do you get your work done? And like, they don't really babysit you if they know you're capable of getting your work done. So like a lot of people like will come in like either at 8 and leave at 4, or like come in at 10 and leave at like 5 or 6. So then I think that's kind of cool. And then like if I have something to do during the day, like I'm not stuck to my desk all day. And then exit opportunities. For us, like there's a lot of like we work directly with the clients a lot. So I think like it's kind of both like good experience, but also you're kind of like networking with them in a way, because if they like you, they'll like offer you a job like later down the line when you're ready. And then cons, travel is not one for all industries, but I think constantly kind of like having to go out to the client, like do inventory or like sit in a tiny audit room. I've heard stories that that's not like the greatest thing. And then hours during season, I think that's like something that everyone knows about public accounting, is like you have to work a certain amount of hours, but it doesn't last too long, so that's good. And then yeah, the stress about the deadlines I think is also kind of a con, because like it is like kind of pressure to get a certain deadline for a client, but then like if they have regulatory deadlines, that's also kind of like pretty stressful if you're managing like more than one thing at once.
Yeah, when it comes to like exit opportunities and flexibility, the longer you, especially with exit opportunities, the longer you stay in public accounting, the more exit opportunities that come up. Like for me, if you're an associate, you'll probably get like maybe, 1 or 2 LinkedIn messages a month about people offering you jobs, whereas Rachel and I probably get like, how many did you get?
I don't get messages.
You don't get messages? Well, you will now because you're a senior. Well, like, especially like once you hit a manager title, you'll probably get 5 to 8 people every 2 weeks messaging you with job offers. And even at the senior level, most people probably get like, 2 to 3 messages of people just throwing you jobs. So you go from a situation where 3 years ago you were struggling to maybe get an internship or a job to all of a sudden having so many people throw jobs at you and you having to go and, having so many things that you have opportunities to do. So for me, it was a real 360 switch. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy I got this first job. And then I, stuck it out and I'm still in public accounting because I definitely feel like my career is set for life and I have a lot of things I can do. So let's see. So Rachel kind of already went over what you would do in public versus what you would do in industry, but at a public accounting firm, that firm is specifically providing basically accounting services or auditing, tax, advisory services, etc. Industry is like any company that isn't providing specifically accounting services, but you're working within their accounting department. So like if you go work at Apple, for example, and work in their accounting department, you're working in industry because Apple isn't a company that was designed to, do accounting services, but they need people in their accounting department to do accounting internally. So industry, you're doing accounting internally. Public, you're doing accounting for external companies. Like Rachel mentioned, or we went in the slide earlier, there's like in public, there's a lot of different niches you can choose between audit, tax, and consulting. And I'm pretty sure for a lot of you guys who are new, maybe in 350 or 220, you're like, how the heck do I choose between these three if I've never done them before, and all that good stuff. And a lot of other presentations that you'll see at these events will probably help you with that. But just a small off-topic tip there to help you with that is networking with professionals who work in those industries and asking them good questions is the best answer to get to that, because knowing whether you want to do audit, tax, or consulting is really hard, but it is a big choice that's probably going to impact the rest of your life. So our tax people can attest to that. So just something to keep in mind. Let's see, professional growth, Rachel, me just kind of already went over it. I already went over CPA license stuff. But yeah, industry-wise, a lot of people actually leave for industry when they can't get their CPA license or they just don't have the time, which is completely fine. Or a lot of people just leave for industry because the pay is higher and because the stress is lower, which is also completely fine. Like if you have 3 kids and you want to spend a lot more time with your family, don't want to be working until 8 o'clock at night some nights, industry is definitely a good choice for you. But the opportunity to move up in industry is definitely way more limited. So to give you an example, if our firm has 5 associates and all 5 of them are doing a good job, all of them will get promoted to senior. Whereas in industry, if there were 5, entry-level accountants and, even if they were all doing a good job, maybe only 2 or 3 of them would get promoted, because in industry, there's limited upward mobility unless people leave. Whereas in public, the turnover can be relatively high, but the good thing that comes from that is there's a lot of opportunity to move up. Or a lot of the time, just like us, you have amazing growth and just need people to, do that. Like our LA office has grown 40% year over year since we started, and we literally need people so bad to keep up with all this work. So that just opens a lot of doors. But if you're the type of person who likes to have, a set career path where, hey, if I do a good job in 3 years, I'll be making X amount of money, and whoops, why does it keep doing that? I'll be making X amount of money and I'll have this title and I know my responsibilities. Public is good for you. If you're the type of person who's more, want a stable job, industry might be better for you. And then that's kind of a high level of it. And there's a lot more factors to consider. Anything you want to add, Electra?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, I also think, don't some people start out in industry and then come to public?
Yeah.
After, I think we had a couple people that.
Yeah, Brianna did that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with industry, I guess I don't personally have experience with it, but I think it is just more like you're there 9 to 5, like punch in, punch out type things. And then, yeah, I think just this kind of working with the same company, like you just kind of probably get stuck in like the rhythm where like you're doing the same entries like every day. You don't really see like a bunch of different things or like have like problems to solve necessarily. And yeah, I think the other things Matt definitely talked about on the last one.
I kind of stole Rachel's slide here by not knowing the slide was next, so my bad, Rachel.
Oh, no.
Okay, I think this one's mine. So a pretty common thing that a lot of people want to go into out of college that maybe don't like audit or tax is consulting/advisory. Advisory is a really broad topic, like probably within advisory, you could find 50 different types of advisory services that companies offer. Here's just like a list of common ones. I won't really go through them because you can Google these and find definitions about them. But just as a tip, entry-level advisory consulting positions are definitely more limited than entry-level audit and tax positions. So it's not that you can't go for it. Just keep in mind that the chances of probably getting it are smaller than getting an entry-level audit and tax position. Most people who are not successful, but usually end up in a advisory or consulting position, usually start in something different and then transition into that. But I know like people who work at a lot of big four firms and other companies who started in advisory, but I also know a lot of people who tried to specifically recruit in that and had trouble. So personal opinion here, it definitely will vary from person to person, is if you're applying for a public accounting firm, I would try to choose between audit or tax and then give that a shot for a year or two and then try to switch into advisory if you don't like it. But you can definitely also try to go for one of these positions straight up if you somehow know you have a true passion for advisory. But anyone who has a true passion for accounting, I want them to find some hobbies outside work, because if you're passionate only about accounting, we need to have a talk. Okay, so that was more just like background about public accounting in general. This is going to be the next 1/3, which I said is like pretty technical stuff. So bear with me if it gets a little dry. Let's see. So internal operations is basically, the slide is going to go over how a public accounting firm tracks revenue. So every day you're going to be working on a client, and when you're working on that client, you got to track how many hours you worked on it, which areas you worked on it, and how much, pretty much those two things, what areas you worked on, how long you worked on it. And then, so that's what you do at every level. But then the managers and the partners at our firm, at least at the end of the week, run a report to see how many hours you worked. And then based on the amount of hours you worked, we assign what's called this, I guess, your hourly rate. There you go. And that's how much the theoretical cost that you put into the job. So say, for example, you're an associate and you worked 20 hours. 20 hours times 100 is what? 2,000, I think, something like that. You, during that week, cost, in a way, $2,000 worth of hours to that time. And that's going to be how it is for all these levels. So from an expense perspective, we're seeing, that's how much time that you put into the job. That's more from an expense perspective. And then going into here, this is the one thing about public accounting that gets to a lot of people, is time entry. So kind of what I was saying, this is a pretty typical time entry line where every day or at the end of every week, like Rachel, I do it every day. Rachel does it every week, and Rachel is probably normal because she does it every week, which is what the typical person does it. I don't know how I got into the habit of doing it every day, but going back to the topic, you just list here information about the client, like the hours you did. This rate is probably going to automatically pop up. Like I said, you would put what kind of task you did. So if you work in audit, you might be helping audit cash or something simple early on. And then this is the report that the partners and managers are going to run to make sure that, hey, are my staff actually working on stuff every week, or are they slow on work, and do I need to find them work? And then to assess the costs and all that stuff to see, is too much time being billed? Is not enough time being billed? And is there a problem? All that good stuff.
Oh yeah, so realization is something, it's kind of like a buzzword that you hear a lot when partners are kind of like talking about how well a job went. It's kind of just like effectiveness of like on the job overall, like did we get this done in time, or are the fees enough? So it's kind of just like a equation of like the audit fee over what kind of Magic was talking about, how many hours you incurred at like a certain bill rate. And yeah, I think that's kind of like what we base our budgets and engagement fees around. Like if the partners see like there was a super hard job and it was like a first year client and it was new and there's a bunch of WIP in the system, they might consider either like increasing the fees or say like, okay, this isn't the right client for us. But yeah, that's the like percentage part, and hopefully you'll see it more in the future.
Yeah, so this is kind of an example where usually firms don't bill based off that expense calculation I was just talking about. They usually bill based off a fixed fee. So if we hire an audit client, we'll tell them, hey, we're going to charge you, $25,000 to $30,000, let's say a range, no matter what, unless some big problems come up. And we determine that based off, having a conversation with the client, understanding what they're doing, if they're growing or if they're, slowing down, all that fun stuff. And then we'll make a budget to estimate what our total cost in people will be. So like, for example, if, it's going to take you, say, if you're going to be on that job for 50 hours and, your hourly rate is $100, you're probably going to be billing $5,000 of time to that job. So that $5,000 in time to that job is going to go in here. You would do that for all the people. You would compare that to the fee, and then you would aim to get, that's your realization on the job. So you're usually not billing clients how much time you actually incur. You're billing clients based off the expected realization you want to have on a job. So like one of our audit partners aims for 75% realization. So she would probably, be okay if the audit and tax fee was like, 15,000. Even if the time incurred was 20,000, she would be okay with taking on that job and building a budget on that. So that's just kind of an example. And from your guys' perspective, when you're new, you'll mostly just care about making sure that, hey, if I'm scheduled 40 hours on the job, is it really taking me 40 hours? Maybe, if it's taking you longer, you should be communicating to the person above you, why it's taking longer. Was it harder? Did issues come up? Maybe the person you're trying to email isn't being responsive. So that's kind of where you guys step in here, because let's say the audit and tax fee was 14,000 and we budgeted you for 40, but you ended up working 80. That can be completely fine as long as we know the reason. We don't want you working 80 hours and only billing 40, which is a pretty common thing people do in public accounting firms. And those are the people who usually burn themselves out and end up quitting. You do that too often. You really just want to, honestly bill how much time you spend on the client and keep track of that and just let your team know, hey, this is why I went over. And you'll be doing that as an intern and an associate. So just how this applies more to you guys. I'm pretty sure this is just more background about how, industry is measured. Some specific niches try to aim for a higher realization than others, just given the background of their location. Yeah. So here's just the email address of me, Rachel, and Electra, if you want to screenshot this slide real quick and email us after. Right now, we're hiring full-time in either our Manhattan Beach or Woodland Hills office for an audit associate. So if any of you guys are graduating at the end of this year and are interested in starting full-time after you graduate, go on our LinkedIn page and you'll see a job opening right there for that application. And we're interviewing people right now for it. I think honestly, we want somewhere between 1 to 3 people. We want a total of 5 people across 3 of our offices, LA, New York, and our Fort Worth office, I think. So we're interviewing in all of those offices, and whichever offices have the best candidates, we're going to hire them there. So I'm really hoping we can get some of you CSUN people as in that group of 5 that we hire, because we really need it right now based off the growth our firm is seeing. And then we're hiring interns for next fall and winter, because we do more internships during the fall and winter, because that's when we're really busy. Like Rachel was saying, we do investment company audits, which honestly has very little to no work, unless you're Rachel, who has our biggest summer client. So during that time of year, we're pretty slow and don't have too much work. So we really don't want to hire interns who just come in and sit around and do nothing. We prefer to have interns who actually, get a chance and exposure to the audit. And just more background is we're like a mid-tier firm. So kind of similar to what Rachel was saying is when you work on our audits, you get exposure to the entire area. Whereas you work at a big firm, at a big 4 firm, you usually just focus on one area like cash and all that. Like one of my friends was telling me she's going to be an acting manager on a job this year, and she's going to be senioring. Her senior is going to be working on an area that she's never worked before. So she's just kind of crossing her fingers and hoping she has a good senior, because she has no clue what she's honestly reviewing from an experience perspective. Obviously, she'll like try to learn it and there, but that's kind of what, limited opportunities, limited viewing opportunities at a bigger firm of the entire picture, something that, is one of the debatable cons of working at a bigger firm. I think this is the last PowerPoint slide, so let me escape this. Yeah, got it right. So 30 minutes in, you guys want to take like maybe 10 to 15 minutes to ask any questions you have, and then 15 to 20 minutes for the breakout room.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna quickly make out the breakout rooms. Nanelli and Con, if you guys want to be in charge of whoever wants to ask questions, go ahead. And I'll let you know once the breakout room's ready.
Okay.
Okay. So right now, if you can have any question, we use the raise your hand feature in the Zoom. We will call you guys by the name
Breakout room,
later.
yeah, the questions right now.
Oh.
You're good. Trying to figure out how to go back to my Zoom thing, but whatever. I think I just stopped share. There we go.
I actually had a quick question. You guys mentioned how, it's best if you guys combine all the questions, ask the associate maybe like once per hour. But since we're in a Zoom setting right now, do you guys have like a certain chat box that you guys use to ask all those questions, or how do you guys communicate?
Guess I'll take that one. If you're working virtually, it'll depend on what system your company is using. Like we use Microsoft Teams, so if you're an intern and you're working from home, and maybe your entire team is working from home, or you're working with someone from a different office, you would probably just message them through Teams. And the way I'd approach it is I would be like, hey, I'm working on this area right now. I'm compiling my questions. Like right now it's 12:30. Do you want to go over them at 1:30 and see if that time works for them, rather than just messaging them via Teams and being like, hey, I have this one question. Can you help me with it? And then at 12:45, again, picking them, hey, I have this other question. Can you help me with it? So that's just kind of like a high level approach on the good ways to ask questions as an intern or an associate. There's definitely times where you do have to just ping them and be like, hey, I have this question, but don't want to go into too much detail on that. But anything you want to add, Rachel?
Yeah, I feel like it's like pretty specific on who you're working with too. Like some people feel like, yeah, just ask me whenever. And then some people, like, you have to put a calendar invite to like talk to them. So it's kind of just like at the beginning, I feel like just feeling it out and yeah, just being respectful of their time and kind of just trying to exhaust all your resources before asking them. But yeah, some people will just like call on the phone and just like help.
Okay. I have a quick question for you guys. It's just like Rachel mentioned about the con is about the travel expense. So at audit, I know that we had a few audits. So during the pandemic, how did you guys conduct the few audit for each client?
Luckily for us, the niche Rachel and I work in require us to travel, which is pretty rare. And most of the people in our audit practice who did have to travel just found a way to get stuff virtually. It wasn't definitely way harder for them. Pretty sure it was a challenge for them. So if they just had, the client upload stuff like, invoices, bank statements, whatever, to a portal. But the reason you want to travel to a client, might be thinking to yourself, hey, wait, why do I have to travel to a client site in the first place if they can upload everything? The reason is, one, usually you're going to be like working with their controller, their vice president, whatever, to ask questions. And it's much easier to get something from them if you can just, if you're working from the office, can go knock at their door and ask them for it versus having to email back and forth. So and then obviously getting to build the relationship with the client. So that's definitely one of the pros of traveling, is building that relationship with your team and client. But in general, I would say for most audits, you really don't need to be at the client site physically to get everything you need. You can probably find a way to get it through some sort of technology we have, which is starting to feel old because I don't know any technology anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I heard just like from my audit class that we in the audit major we have to sometimes we have to come to the display to verify the existence of the access by observation. So that's I don't know how you guys can do it during this time, but hopefully it will be come back later. Thank you for your answer.
Inventory count during COVID. They just made me wear a mask. It was like after like peak COVID though. But
All right, the breakout rooms are ready, so I'm quickly going to assign all the rooms. It's gonna be about 7 to 10 minutes, and I'll let you know when it's like 60 seconds.
Sounds good.
yeah.
Rachel's gonna
Thank you
switch
very
to the room real quick.
Okay. See you guys later. That's it. Go ahead, Dr. Tuan, for the announcements.
Okay, so this is again a announcement for this week. So on Thursday, we will have the meet the firm with the private industry and government. So if you get from 4 to 7 p.m. So if you get interesting, don't forget to rest professional, have some questions ready, and research about the firm and you want to meet. And on Sunday, will be an interesting event on from 1 to 4 p.m. We have a picnic in Rio Northridge Park for our AA exclusive member. So if you already signed, register, please attend. We will have a lot of game and plenty of food for everyone. And remember, next Monday on October 11, we have another technical meeting with Roger CPA on the present topic of from point A to a CPA. And so that's it for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for spending our time and to join us today.
Thank you to Reaper for coming to our technical meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. It was
Thank
very
you.
nice to meet you all.